Hi, it's Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com, where we instantly improve the lives of families of critically ill patients in intensive care so that you can have peace of mind, real power, real control, and so that you can influence decision making fast, even if you're not a doctor or a nurse in intensive care. In last week's blog, I shared with you 5 things you need to do in order to stop worrying about any negative consequences when you challenge the intensive care team's perceived power and perceived authority. You can check out last week's blog by clicking on the link below this video. In this week's blog, I want to talk to you about if your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. It's time for a new paradigm. Before I get into today's topic, I want to share a quote with you that I wrote on today's topic, and the quote says, "What's the difference that makes the difference between families of critically ill patients in intensive care who have peace of mind, control, power and influence, and between the 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care who don't?" Families of critically ill patients in intensive care who get peace of mind, control, power and influence quickly simply don't settle for being second best, and they don't settle for the age-old paradigm that the doctors and the intensive care team are the ones running the show. The few families of critically ill patients in intensive care who get it and have peace of mind, control, power and influence and reach the outcomes that they want for their critically ill loved one and for themselves don't settle for anything less, and they know that they need to change their paradigm to live up to know what they are capable of. What makes the difference? Knowledge and confidence. In other words, successful people and successful families of critically ill patients in intensive care have knowledge and confidence that most others don't. Your success in life and the ability to control things is directly proportional to what you learn and apply. If you want to get peace of mind, control, power and influence quickly when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, you must be willing to seek out, learn and apply uncommon and specialized knowledge you know will help you to get the results that you want. The more you apply what you know, the quicker you will get peace of mind, control, power and influence. So let's get into today's topic. If your loved one is critically ill in intensive care, the intensive care team is well prepared to manage you, your family and your critically ill loved one. The intensive care team manages critical illness and families in intensive care 24 hours a day, 7 days a week and 365 days a year, period. And they are managing those dynamics in their chosen ways and not necessarily according to how you and your family feel. They know what to say, when to say it and how to say it. The intensive care team manages the critical illness of your critically ill loved one in a way so that they can get what they want, which doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with what you want. Intensive care is a high stakes game, and most of the time only the intensive care team knows how to win. And that often means that your feelings and your agenda are not important for the intensive care team. You should check out this related video, How to Play a High Stakes Game that only the intensive care team knows how to win. Check it out in the written version below this video. 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care have no peace of mind, no power, no control and no influence. Most likely you belong to those 99% and you buy into the mindset of those families, or if you buy into the often negative mindset of the intensive care team, you should probably stop watching here because I'm about to challenge you. If you and your family want to belong into the tiny 1% bracket of families of critically ill patients in intensive care who have peace of mind, control, power and influence, you need to go against the grain. You need to look at what the 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care do and do the complete opposite. The 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care who don't get it and who don't have peace of mind, control, power and influence believe everything and anything the intensive care team is telling them. They buy into the negativity of the intensive care team, and they buy into the doom and gloom of the intensive care team. They also don't look for solutions, and they don't look for role models who have peace of mind, control, power and influence. The 1% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care who have peace of mind, control, power and influence change their paradigms. They look for role models, and they quickly acquire the knowledge and the skills that are needed to get peace of mind, control, power and influence quickly. And in the process they start managing the intensive care team. And I can tell you that after more than 15 years intensive care nursing in 3 different countries, where I literally worked with thousands of critically ill patients and their families on an intimate level, and where I also worked as a nurse unit manager in intensive care for more than 5 years, that I know for a fact that only if you succeed in making a paradigm shift that you will have peace of mind, control, power and influence when your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. So you may ask, what's a paradigm and what's a paradigm shift? Let's quickly look at the definition of paradigm. A paradigm means a typical example or pattern of something, a pattern or a model. Now, in intensive care, this pattern or model is usually dictated by the intensive care team, and this model or pattern means that they are running the show. But worst of all, 99% of families of critically ill patients in intensive care who don't have peace of mind, don't have control and who don't have influence don't really challenge the intensive care team's model or patterns. They just passively sit at the sidelines, deeply frustrated at the events that are unfolding right in front of them whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. You need to change your paradigm, and you need to challenge the intensive care team's model of the world, and you need to do it quickly. The fact of the matter is that if your critically ill loved one is either very unstable and in a very critical condition, or is in a life-threatening situation, or is in intensive care for long-term treatments and long-term stays, including long-term ventilation, or your loved one may be having a severe or traumatic head or brain injury, or your loved one may be threatened with an NFR, not for resuscitation, or DNR, do not resuscitate order, or your critically ill loved one may be in a situation where the intensive care team suggests a withdrawal of treatment or a limitation of treatment as being quote-unquote in the best interest of your critically ill loved one, or your critically ill loved one may even be approaching the end of life in intensive care. The fact of the matter is that in those situations you and your family need to challenge the intensive care team's perceived power and their perceived authority, because you and your family don't want to have your loved one critically ill in intensive care without realizing that the prognosis and the diagnosis of your critically ill loved one has been positioned by the intensive care team according to their hidden agenda. You and your family want to stay in control, and you want to have peace of mind, control, power and influence no matter what. And if you have watched this far, chances are that you are at the beginning of changing your paradigm whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. But you must be quick, because time is your enemy. So, how can you change your paradigm, and how can you get peace of mind, control, power and influence quickly whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care? You get to that all-important feeling of peace of mind, control, power and influence when you download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn quickly how to get peace of mind, real power and real control, and how you can influence decision making fast whilst your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Your free Instant Impact Report gives you in-depth insight that you must know whilst your loved one is critically ill or is even dying in intensive care. Sign up and download your free Instant Impact Report now by entering your email below. In your free Instant Impact Report, you learn how to speak the secret intensive care language so that the doctors and the nurses know straight away that you are an insider and that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care. In your free report, you will also discover how to ask the doctors and the nurses the right questions, discover the many competing interests in intensive care and how your critically ill loved one's treatment may depend on those competing interests, how to eliminate fear, frustration, stress, struggle and vulnerability even if your loved one is dying. 5 mind-blowing tips and strategies helping you to get on the right path to peace of mind, control, power and influence in your situation. You will get real-world examples that you can easily adapt to your and your critically ill loved one's situation. How to stop being intimidated by the intensive care team and how you will be seen as equals. You will get crucial behind-the-scenes insight so that you know and understand what's really happening in intensive care and how you need to manage doctors and nurses in intensive care, and it's not what you think. Thank you for tuning into this week's blog, and I'll see you again in another update next week. Make sure you also check out our Your Questions Answered section, where I answer your questions, or send me an email to support@intensivecarehotline.com with your questions. Or you can call us. Find phone numbers on our Contacts tab. Also check out our product section, where you get more ebooks, videos and audio recordings, and where you can also get one-on-one consulting with me via Skype, over the phone or via email by clicking on the Products tab. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecarehotline.com, and I'll see you again next week in another update.